Hi, everyone. The foundation of our ministry comes from Romans 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I was looking at Romans 6 to see what actually happened to the old you and the old me. Listen to Romans 6, 6. Knowing this, that our old self was crucified with him, that our body of sin might be done away with, that we should no longer be slaves to sin. And then over in verse 4, therefore we have been buried with him through baptism into death, in order that as Christ was raised from the dead through the glory of the Father, so we too might walk in newness of life. I'm sure many of you have maybe even memorized Galatians 2:20. It says, I have been crucified with Christ. I no longer live, but Christ lives through me. If you go over here to Ephesians, you'll see what else happened. It says that when we were dead in our transgressions, he made us alive together with Christ. By grace you have been saved. And he raised us up with him and seated us with him in the heavenly places in Christ Jesus. So we've been crucified with him, buried with him, raised with him, ascended and seated in heavenly places with him. You see, God is not a time creature. It's hard for us to wrap our head around this because we're time creatures. But God can see everything all at the same time. And so I love, when I talk about this topic, I love to remind people when we feel like we're under some type of spiritual attack, and we get our eyes and our focus on that, and we get worried, and we call up everybody and say, pray for me. We need to remind ourselves of what the truth is. Because in Ephesians 1, after it says in Ephesians 2 that he raised us up with him and seated us with him in the heavenly places, look what it says in Ephesians 1. It says, I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, so that you may know what is the hope of his calling, what are the riches of the glory of his inheritance in the saints, and what is the surpassing greatness of his power toward us who believe. These are in accordance with the working of the strength of his might. And listen to this, which he brought about in Christ when he raised him from the dead and seated him at the right hand in heavenly places, far above all rule and authority and power and dominion, and every name that is named, not only in this age and also in the one to come. And he put all things in subjection under his feet, and gave him as head over all things to the church, which is his body, the fullness of him who fills all in all.